This is the updated, complete, step-by-step process to change a ceiling light into a ceiling fan. It's easy. Let's get started. Welcome to Tomahawk DIY, everyone. I'm Mike. The first thing we need to do is turn off the circuit breaker. Make sure there's no power up here. I recommend you have an electrical tester as well to be sure the power is off. So the light turned off when we switched off the circuit breaker. Alright, so we need to take our light fixture off. Depending on the fixture, there's different ways to take these down. This one has a part that unscrews at the bottom. Usually you can't see any screws, and so there's a trick somewhere, just like in this case, unscrewing a little ball. Careful not to drop our glass. I'm going to remove these light bulbs just so we don't run into problems as we take this off. Don't want to accidentally break these, especially these ones which contain a little bit of mercury. So I'm finding a couple screws up here. We're going to loosen those enough to get this fixture down. We don't need to take the screws all the way out at this point. Okay, I was able to pry this down a little bit, just get my fingers under it, and now I can slide it over. Oh, look at this. These screws were not the original screws that came with this fixture. Typically you can just leave the screws in place and undo the entire fixture. However, these screws are too big. So I'll take the screws out. Okay, with the screws out, you want to make sure your electricity is turned off here. So we're going to use a little electrical tester to show that. You hold it up, turn it on, and the lights will flash if there's power. There's an Amazon affiliate link in the description that will cost you nothing extra to make a purchase from Amazon, but I appreciate it if you click it before making a purchase, as it sends me a small commission. Okay, once we have confirmed the power's off, we're going to unscrew these wires, the wire nuts. So we got our black wire, that's our hot wire, our white wire, which is our neutral wire, and the copper wire, which is our grounding wire. Once these are undone, we'll be able to get the whole light fixture down. Okay, with that, we got the wires undone, light fixture comes down. Alright, next we're going to find the mounting brackets. So this is one of the most important parts. We need to be sure this fan is supported properly up on the ceiling. There's multiple ways to secure it. There's some aftermarket products like this one, which is a ceiling fan with side mount bracket. There's this one that's a ceiling fan with a support brace kit, and then this particular box says it includes a surface mount support. So we're going to look for that and figure out what the best one is for this job. Alright, the easiest installation is going to be this bracket that was provided that is a surface mount. It goes around the box like so. However, the key with this, you must ensure that both sides of the bracket screw into a stud. So somewhere along here, there's a support beam that's running. We're going to try and find it. A couple ways to do that. One, you can knock and try and guess where it is, use a hammer. I've got a stud finder. We're going to try using that to find the locations. Okay, so the stud finder was having quite a bit of trouble here with the texture on the ceiling, and I think some of the wood being set back a little bit from the ceiling. For example, there's a stud right there, and this thing's not picking it up. So, here's another trick I used. I took my screwdriver, came around the edge of this box, again being sure my power is turned off, until I found where the wood was. And I can poking around through here, I'm able to find that there's one of the support beams, one of the trusses overhead is running right there. So, with that information, I grabbed the support provided and take a look at my holes, and to line up with a stud, it would have to sit like that. So that is not ideal with this box location, because when I cover it, half of the box over here isn't covered. So I'd have a junction box that's not above the fan. So definitely a problem. We're going to have to use an old retrofit box, so I'll show you how to do that. Let me show you how you can put in a retrofit or an old work box that's a little different than most. It's one that is able to support up to 70 pounds. And so that's pretty important when you're putting a ceiling fan up or a heavy chandelier. It'll be this one that we're going to put in place. Alright, so to cut the box, I'm going to use this multi-tool. I've got a metal cutting tip for this, which will allow us to cut the screws that are holding that box in place, or the nails. Now I've got my safety glasses on to keep my eyes clean. I've got my power turned off. I've double checked that. So we're going to be taking this blade right at the side. This is already a 4-inch hole, and that's the size of hole that we're supposed to have for this retrofit box. So I want to be careful not to mess up the edges of the hole too much as I work on cutting this out. So here we go. I should also note I'm running a risk of cutting these wires while I'm up here working, so that's a concern that we want to be careful with, and hopefully we can avoid cutting the wire. I'm going to cut the box as we go. I found one of the nails right here. We got to cut that. Alright, this is a great little tool. I don't know if you, let's see if we can get that. Gosh, that nail's burning hot. I shouldn't have touched that. But here it is, cut through. Alright, with both nails out, now we're going to work this junction box out. We got to get our wires. Obviously we want to leave the wires in the ceiling on this retrofit job. I'm going to try and pry open where the wires go through, being careful not to nick or cut the insulation on the wires. We don't want our job to have a fire hazard when I'm done. Alright, I think I got it. If I can get the box out, that's the next question. Ceiling's full insulation here. Okay, got it. Now, I'm taking a close look at these wires to be sure that in my demolition here I haven't nicked or cut any of this insulation. I think everything's looking okay. If there were any bare copper showing, we'd have a problem here. We'd have to work some more wire on this in a safe manner. And that brings up safety is always important when you're working and doing projects. So don't try anything you're not comfortable with. You're responsible for your own actions. Make sure you're being safe. Alright, for these old work boxes, it's got some good instructions on things to watch. A couple points on this one. There's these screws that you have to select which side you want. 1032 screws or 832 screws, depending on what you're supplying, what you're installing. Now, because we're putting a fan in place, we want the 1032. These ones are already set to it. Alright, use your imagination with me for a moment. If this box were the wood right here, it's going to secure in like that, and then the box is going to secure this side. Alright, this can be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to show this before I put it up the ceiling. These big wood screws are what's holding this in place. This box is rated for 70 pounds, which is pretty typical for a lot of ceiling fans. I showed the little slides on the side. You need to make sure those are set for the fan. And then, if you try and set it like this, that's incorrect. It's not going to work. You need to set this particular box, different brands of box will probably be different, like so, and there will be some screws that you're going to come up through the inside of the box. Right, so the screw comes out of the inside there, and then screws in here, and that when that screws in place from the inside all the way through, it's going to hold the box together. So here it is all screwed together. We got two screws there. There's also a ground screw that you're going to use with the ground wire inside. Okay, let's get this thing in the ceiling. So let's get this bracket installed. Working it in there, getting it flush on the wood. Alright, here we go. I got my extension tip on the drill, which is going to help. Holding the bracket in place. I test fit it. Now we go in. Okay, let's see if it fits. You know what I forgot? I forgot to put the wire through. Like so. Now they provide this nice grommet that goes in. I'll be putting this up in the box. I'm going to slide the wire through the hole first. Then I'll slide this grommet onto the wire and get it secured here. That'll keep the wire from ever rubbing against the metal and cutting. So we're feeding the wire in through our knockout. Okay, with that in place, okay, now we're going to get our little grommet on the wires. To put this in, I know you can't see much with my hands here, but you want to be careful that you're not cutting the wires in the process of it going in. So watch the metal edges. So there we worked the wires through, got the grommet snapped in place, pushed it down so it's nice and flat or flush around here. Now that we've successfully installed this ceiling fan rated junction box, let's continue to the fan installation. We're installing a Hunter brand ceiling fan today. The process and procedure is going to be a little bit different for different fans, but the general concepts will be there. In this one we've got to remove a set screw, like so. And then we need to work this guy onto our wires. And we got a lot of wires here to work with. Now this is probably got 3 feet of wire here, which is great if this is hanging a long ways from the ceiling. Since we're not going to be hanging so far down the ceiling, I'm just going to give myself about a foot worth of wire. Plenty to work with. I'm going to cut the rest off. And these guys all get threaded through. This is the little down rod that's going to be hanging from the ceiling. We're going to tighten, screw this down until it stops. Still going, ever so slightly. Okay, I think we got it stopped. Okay, I got to put this set screw back in. And as I put this set screw in, I'm going to use some pliers to help, or a square head bit, if I can get it started. Now this is an important little screw because it's holding this so that the fan doesn't spin itself off over time, work its way loose. So here we go, let's get this thing tightened in. Alright, I think we about got it. Alright, we got to put this little decorative canopy cover on, slip everything through. And that's just going to sit there. Now remember this bracket here, the one that because of our positioning of the support beam overhead, we couldn't just screw directly to it. Well, this is still essential because it's going to actually hold the fan like so. It's going to sit there. So we've got to get this thing secured onto our box up in the ceiling. One thing I forgot to do, I need to remove all these brackets here with these screws. Now I want to not lose any of these screws. Okay, so our box is going to go on like so. Hopefully these screws that were provided are long enough for me. This is an important point here, making sure the screws are sufficiently long. If the ones in your box are not long enough, you may have to go buy some extra ones. Alright, so I got some longer screws now. We're going to get this bracket put up in place. Alright, got longer screws. I'm putting the bracket in place now. This bracket has some pads that kind of go to the ceiling, push into the drywall a little bit. I don't want to over tighten it. Alright, now we're putting the entire fan up. We want to be careful we're not lifting with the wires. Lift from the holder up here or from the bottom. Again, being careful of wiring. I know it's in place, it'll be sitting, hanging. Alright, so you can see how it's sitting there in the bracket. We got to do some wiring now. Let's get the wires that we need. First we're going to connect the ground wires. Now there are 3 ground wires. We've got one that comes from the mounting bracket right here, green with the yellow stripe. One that comes from the ceiling fan, green with the yellow stripe. And one that comes from the home wiring, that's just a bare copper wire. So we're going to get the ends of our ground wire all exposed. Alright, I've got my 3 grounds. Putting them into the orange wire nut. I'm going to twist this thing around. Once it feels tight, I'm going to give these a tug and see if they all stay in. Alright, they do seem to be staying. So, we got one wire done. We got to use our wire stripper here. Expose the ends of these wires. Now, from the remote control, when all is said and done, it's going to be sitting inside everything, something like this. But until then, I'm going to keep it out so we can work with stuff. Connecting the yellow and the black wires. The black wire from the fan itself, the yellow wire from the remote control. So we're going to use one of these orange wire nuts. Yellow and black going together. Screwing it nice and tight, giving some tugs, everything's staying. Then we connect the blue wire from the fan and the blue wire from the remote control. That one's easy, isn't it? Blue wire from the fan, blue wire from the remote control. Okay, now from the remote receiver, I'm going to connect the black wire to the black wire from the ceiling. Remember, this is our hot wire. This is a really easy fluke device for testing for live wires. So I'm going to turn this one on. See, it lights up. So if I touch that right now, I'm going to get shocked. So the other wires don't have power on them, but this one, it doesn't even have to touch. Right there, about a centimeter away. So this is a great tool. It's not actually touching the wire, and it lets you know it's live. So I'm going to go turn that power off again. And with the power off, we know we're okay to touch it. Okay, so I've got the receiver. I'm going to connect the black wire from the receiver to the black wire or the hot wire from the ceiling. And then from the receiver, I'm going to connect the white wire from the receiver, the neutral, the white wire from the fan, and the white wire coming from the house or the ceiling all together. Now, anytime you're working with electrical stuff, obviously know what you're doing. Don't electrocute yourself. Make sure you're not going to start a fire. Follow the local electrical codes. If you're uncertain what you need to be doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it because you don't want to be causing yourself some bigger problems. Alright, the wires are all in there securely. Now from the receiver, I still have a remote signal wire that's loose. You can tell that doesn't have anything on the end. And we're going to tuck all these wires up in the box. So I'm getting them all pushed up into the ceiling box. There. Then we're going to put this cover in place, and there's 2 screws, one on each side. Loosely put it in to start. Alright. Now that we've got this tightened down, we're going to check that the fan's functioning before we get much further, in case we need to double check any wiring here. Alright, this next step, we got to put the fan blades together. This takes a little bit of time, so it's a great one to have a helper take care of while everything else is being installed overhead. In this particular fan, we've got some grommets that have to go in. Then on the back side, we got to pull them out. Once we have those through, we're going to put this bracket on, line up our holes, and we screw them in place. There you have it. Now I'll put the ceiling blades on. Alright, now we're trying to tighten these down. Alright, as we finish up our 5 fan blades here, now we're going to make sure they're all tight and work on the light. Okay, now we've got to put a housing on the bottom here. That requires putting some screws in. We're going to feed the wire through this assembly. And then finish screwing it down. We've got to line this. Here's the whole assembly we're putting up. We need to put the wires in place now. Plug them together. They've color-coded it to make it easy. Snap it in place, make sure the wires all go up inside, and then work this housing on. Twist in place, we'll put the 3rd screw in and tighten all 3 of them down. Now they provided some bulbs. These are a different size socket than most typical light bulbs. Looks like they're not LED. It'd be nice to have some LED ones that'll last for the next 15 or 20 years. Maybe pick some of those up. They'll pay for themselves pretty quick in energy savings alone. And we're going to put the assembly on the bottom. Before I put the housing back on, let's check and make sure this thing is working. There we go, the lights turn on, and this fan can rotate in both directions. In the winter you want the fan pushing air up, and in the summer you want it pushing down, I believe. So I'm going to reverse the direction. Let's try the other way. And there it goes. So I think we're ready to put the housing on. Put the glass on the bottom. Gotta take that off. There's a few pieces that go together, kind of a plastic protective one right at the bottom, then this metal one, and then it secures all together. There you have it, everyone. We've installed a ceiling fan. It's not too tough, but it does take a little bit of time, some basic tools, and now it's working and keep things cool. Thanks so much for watching Tomahawk DIY. Like the video, subscribe. I will include some links to Amazon where you can pick up some of the parts and pieces, materials that have been used in this video. You can even buy a ceiling fan there. Now the fan we're installing today is a Hunter ceiling fan. I'll include a link on Amazon where you can pick up a fan like this. There's a whole series. These are a great style, great brand of fan. So if you do click on one of those links, it is an affiliate link which sends a small commission my way, and that goes to help support the mission of Tomahawk DIY. Leave a comment, like the video. Have a great day.